Okay, so today is a very quick video. It was inspired by a conversation I had with a fellow photographer very recently, and also on my latest interview with my agent Scott. You can find that on his YouTube channel, The Tin House Studio. Despite it being a very recent conversation, it is also something I get asked all the time, particularly by new photographers and people just coming out of university. Camera gear, lighting, technology. How important is it to really truly love it to be successful? So I have built a six-figure fashion photography business over the last 13 years that I've been doing this. I am represented by an agent based in London who represent me worldwide, and I've done it all from my very humble home here in Scotland, in Edinburgh. So no, I have not been living in a major fashion capital at any point. When I first started out in this industry, I was so daunted by technology. When I first began my journey into the world of art, it first began with pencil and paper, watercolors, paints, makeup, all these different things, all these different mediums, and that influence came from my mum to begin with. And although I loved all of these art forms, none of them were really speaking to me in the way that I'd hoped. It wasn't until I discovered photography and my love for that I realized this was the way I wanted to express myself and tell my stories. Now, my dad is very different to me. Our brains work in two completely different ways. He loves technology. He loves the tiny details, the little nuances, all the way these things work, the way they come together. He built computers for a very long time for a living. He works in data, complexity, chaos theory. Me, I don't understand any of that. I don't work in numbers, I work in visuals. And that is why when I first started, the camera had always been a little bit of a barrier for me. So when my dad wanted to show me how the camera worked, he showed it to me and explained it to me in a way that I so desperately wanted to love and understand, but I just really struggled. So for a very long time, I had so many insecurities all around the fact that I didn't love technology. I wasn't as into the camera, the gear, all the little light modifiers and things like that as much as my fellow photographers, people that I saw on YouTube and workshops and things like that. When they started talking in that kind of jargon and that kind of language, my brain just started to switch off and I really struggled to take in information. And it made me wonder, is this for me? And all these things like the imposter syndrome, self-doubt, all these things started to creep in. And as I'm sure we can all agree, this industry can leave photographers feeling very lonely. We do a lot of things on our own. We run this business a lot of the time on our own. Taking photos, being part of a team is probably only 10% of what we do. So with that in mind, I could only compare myself to others that I could see on the internet, which was obviously my first mistake. When I was very young and I was starting out in photography, I felt very insecure turning up to photo shoots and pretty much just using one light. I'd always bring more with me, just in case, but more often than not, I would just use one light. And for those that know me well, we all know which light that was. It was with the beauty dish. And I did that because that's what I felt gave me the best results. That's what I loved. That's what gave me the look I was after. And although I was very happy with that, deep down, I felt like it wasn't enough. I was worried that people were going to think that I didn't know enough. And all those feelings of being an imposter really started to creep through. Now, this business is all about learning, growing, developing, continually trying to keep up with the new trends, with the way the industry is going. Of course, I'm always keeping up to date with these things, and I learn what I need to learn to be ahead of the game. But ultimately, the camera, the lights, the technology, it is a means to an end for me, and I do not have a problem saying that now. And I will tell you why I don't have a problem saying that now. I will tell you how I got to a point of deep insecurity to being completely comfortable saying what I'm saying to you now. Back in 2015, when I think I was about 21, a team and I got invited down to London to shoot a personal project and be mentored by my idol, Nick Knight, for the day. It was a very daunting prospect. It was going to be the first time that I'd have someone of that caliber and all the production team looking over my shoulder and analysing everything that I was doing. Not only that, but it was also being filmed as educational purposes for a huge audience worldwide. And as a 21-year-old who hadn't been shooting that long, that was a really scary prospect. I was so excited, but God, I was terrified. However, It wasn't until I had a phone call with the production team and the gaffer that I realized I had really nothing to worry about. When they asked me what kit I needed on the set, my brain went into overdrive and I started to think of all the lights and all the modifiers and all the little bits and pieces I could to make myself sound fancy. Now, obviously, this wasn't me. Obviously, I had big plans to pretty much just use one light, beauty dish, probably a grid, maybe 2 strip boxes in the back to just give a little bit of something on the hair. But I went all guns blazing. Now, the gaffer said to me on the phone, okay, yeah, that's no problem. We can get all of those things for you, but just a little heads up. Nick's not really a fan of using loads and loads of lights and gear and things like that on his shoots. He does tend to just use one key light and he does tend to like things quite stripped back. So I just thought I'd give you the heads up on that. And I felt so relieved. I thought the person that I've looked up to my whole career, the person that I've idolized my entire career, he likes to keep things as simple as I do. And all of a sudden, I did not feel insecure anymore. I didn't feel alone. And I felt like I didn't need to put this bravado on at all. This was completely unnecessary. Yeah, part of me did feel a little bit silly, but the other part mostly felt completely and totally relieved. It was so nice to know that I wasn't alone, especially from someone of that standard and of that level, and also whose work I love. And this goes back to something I always say, it is so important to try and surround yourself with a wider network when you're in this business, particularly other photographers. It's so easy to want to keep yourself to yourself because other photographers usually mean competition, but it's not necessary at all. And you will find so much cathartic energy when you speak to other photographers and how they do things. And I can guarantee that they will feel the same way. We should be looking after each other. We should be looking out for each other. And we will all feel happier for it. Now, of course, everything is brief dependent and everything requires its own setup. Majority of the time, people are obviously looking for my style. So I do tend to stick with more or less the same kind of light setups. Again, it depends. But for me, the less I have to think about, the simpler I can make it for myself, but maintaining amazing results, the better. As long as everything works, it turns on, it's intuitive, it gives me the results I'm after, it gives it to me at the standard that I feel is right and is right for my client, then that is all that matters to me. I have a very specific style in the way I shoot on set. I'm always moving around. I love to maintain flexibility. I love to move with the model as much as I can. I like to create a little dance. I like to create a moment between the two of us. It's a very intimate thing that we're doing. And that is also the reason why I like to use a zoom lens, which is, I know, quite controversial. I don't tend to use prime lenses much when I'm doing fashion because I'm moving around all the time. I'm changing the angle up all the time. I'm completely working on intuition most of the time. And for me personally, that gets me and my clients the best results. Now, everyone will have different styles of shooting. Everyone will have their way of doing things. And that's something that you learn and grow with over time. And something else that I never use as well for this reason is a tripod. This is probably the only time you'll see me using a tripod is for these videos and of course for still life. I've watched so many YouTube tutorials, videos, workshops, things like that, where they tend to get so bogged down in the technology and the tiny little details of how everything works and operates. And while I appreciate that that sort of thing is really interesting and cool for a lot of people, for me personally, my brain just doesn't take in information that way. And I find myself skipping towards the end to go, okay, but what's it going to give me? What's the output? What's the result? Is it going to give me what I need and what I'm looking for? And that's just the way my brain works. So hopefully some of you that are listening to this will feel the same way. And hopefully this will take a little bit of pressure off your shoulders in that you don't need to love technology to be good at this game. I also want to stress that we cannot do this alone. Every image that we create is a celebration and an amalgamation of the team around us. It's all about collaboration. It is so important for me, and it should be for you too, to be surrounded by people who are incredibly knowledgeable at what they do. And for me, I love to be around people that know more than me. This is a wonderful way to develop and grow so much more as a photographer. So every time I step on set, I learn something new, and I love that. So I hope that this video was somewhat helpful. It's a little bit of a controversial one, but I really hope that it did resonate with some of you. One of the most important things for me with this YouTube channel is that I can talk to you about things that make you feel less alone, make you feel more heard and understood in your worries, thoughts, and feelings. I want to try and always be as honest with you as I can, and I want to try and give you the most valuable information that I can. So next time you're watching a workshop or a tutorial or anything like that, and they're going into enormous depth about all the tiny details with the technology, and perhaps it's just not going through your brain and you're finding yourself skipping to the end, just know that you're not alone and I am here for you.